The reason I'm a bit late is because I was on the telephone, as you sometimes do. Let me just see if I'm on with the other channel yet. It's always interesting coming in late. That's certainly changes things. So let me see. Oh, that's someone else. Oh, it says I'm broadcasting. That's all right. Now, I know that I can't see all of the chat, so one of the reasons why I'm doing this and getting a feel for it all is because, I need to get used to the technology and what the limitations are while I'm going. Like, the technology, it looks really weird on what I can see. So I can see some of the chat, but not much, and it's supposed to be on this side, and it's not really. It's never come up where it's supposed to be. So I don't know. Never mind. So I have my water. I've got my game up in front of me, which I'm not really playing. I sort of walked in and I'd left it this morning because that's what you do. That's what you do on the big jobs. So what was happening today that I thought that, I would like to have a look at that. So let's pull this over here. I'll just, pull that over a little bit, I think. So this looks like this has put a bit of a crimp into the works for them. So where do I start? I mean, I've always found it hard to talk about the banking stuff because for me, it's really hard to pick a beginning because, there's my story, which starts with, we talk to the bank about a loan and, ends up with us losing everything and having to sue the bank and, then they settle out of court. So, if I'm going to say I'm, on the side of the good guys won in the end. But that's not really where all of this banking schmozzle started, is it? I mean, I wasn't the first, wasn't the last. I'm just one of many, one of far too many, but, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around where do I want to start with this. And because I know that there's people who have other legal problems other than stuff with the banks, how do I help all of them? Like, the one to many. What content can I create? And where do I start with explaining what needs to be done? So the banking schmozzle started back when Paul Keating, in his wisdom, decided that, it would be a really good idea to deregulate our banks so that more banks could come in. But what happened was that all of our banks, not only did they become too big for their britches, but they did stuff that was maybe not against the law, but, really skating close to it. They did things that were unconscionable. They did things that were really terrible, and people lost everything because of them. There's so many stories to tell, and I guess because I've got my own channel, I can take my time in, doing a bit of time travel and going back to the beginning, in the middle, and I mean, we'll never be at the end because the banking lobby is so big. I mean, they tried to get rid of what limited protections customers have from their banks. And, you know, no one's really looking at what the banks are doing to any great extent. I know that I was always told that, you know, our banks are the most regulated banks in the world. You know, the banks do not do what you're accusing them of. That does not happen. And of course, once I had my blog going, I would be contacted by people who had experienced all of the shenanigans that the banks got up to, and I realised just how big this thing was. And I do kind of regret giving it up to become a lawyer, because now I've come full circle. But it's also been really good, because even though I wasn't a lawyer for very long, working in a law firm has given me a grounding to understand the other side from more than just an academic and my personal position from, you know, my experience being a client of a lawyer. I was in a law firm long enough to see how things happen, you know, what kind of things go on in a law firm and what kind of interactions there are between the lawyer and the clients and, you know, the back-end staff and clients, and, you know, how it all fits together. And, you know, and you have some interesting experiences, especially when you start talking to other lawyers who, you know, sometimes you come across lawyers who aren't very happy with the firm they're working for. And then, of course, you get this whole, yeah, but we're not allowed to whinge about them because, you know, it's kind of against the rules. And, you know, do the rules that lawyers have to abide by, do they really protect the public, or are some of them only to protect the profession? And, you know, I've got my personal opinions about the legal profession that I've acquired over the years. And I know there are some really great people out there working as, you know, lawyers, barristers, judges, magistrates. And there's also either they're total idiots or they're so corrupt that, you know, you really don't know what's going on. But I'm always hesitant to say too much about anything, because everything's always controversial. No matter which way you put it, someone's going to misunderstand. And I think that's one of my biggest fears, is that, you know, with all of this, especially when I'm talking and I don't stick to a script. I don't have a script in front of me. I know what I want to talk about because I've planned it, but I do go off the plan, so I do go a bit off topic and then I have to pull it back again. And there will be plenty of people who will disagree with me. I'm just giving you my opinion. It's like commentary. And because I do want to actually give people who've got no money for a lawyer, who need a lawyer, you know, how do you get the best legal advice when you've got limited funds to get that advice? You know, can you break up enough of the work? Can you do enough of it yourself so that you can get an opinion from a lawyer and then finish the job yourself? And people would think that that's pretty hard to do, and I'm telling you, yes, it is. But, you know, needs must. Lawyers are really expensive, and there are ways that you can save on your legal fees. And there's a lot of law firms now going back to the, you know, we're going to tell you how much something costs, and we'll give you a ballpark figure. We'll let you know if it's going to go over that, and we can discuss what we're going to do. But, you know, today I want to talk about what the government does, because the government has a role to play in this. And my biggest gripe about the government in relation to banking and family law, I think family law has to be lumped in there, is that the laws that we've got, the legislation that's put together, some of that has got so many holes, they call it a lacuna, that you can drive a bloody truck through. So why haven't they fixed it? Especially since the Royal Commission, rather than, the holes were identified, and rather than saying, oh, gee, the banks really are bad, our beloved government, our beloved leader, Scotty from marketing, is still backing the banks and is still not bringing in all of the recommendations from the Royal Commission, and, wanted to unroll everything. And I'm sorry, but I can't respect that or understand it. Once upon a time, when I was even more naive than I am now, I used to think that, you could trust some of the government ministers because, they got to their positions because, they only went into politics because they had something to give, they wanted to give to the community. And I'm sorry, but they're all in it for themselves. Humble opinion again, just my biased ass pointing out the fact that there aren't any superstars out there. And I mean, when you think that the Australian Prime Minister is paid more than, other world leaders, you sort of think, what? Why? And then, of course, they're all on the public teat until the day they die because they get pensions forever. And I'm there, your pension that you can get as soon as you leave, you don't have to wait until retirement like the rest of us. That's more than anybody gets on their pension. And, you bright sparks can't be bothered fixing the system for the rest of us. It's like, I hate the government. I do. Or the grubberment, as I, have heard them referred to. Look, it's just, I get really annoyed with it. Because we trust them to put in the right laws. And do you know how many laws come in all the time? It's like, look, should I do no, I don't want to do Google search. You can Google search it yourself. It used to be that, the Parliament would sort of put forward, 25, amendments or new acts. So, that they would solve a problem. And now we're talking about thousands a year. And none of it helps any of us. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but ignorance of the law is no excuse. If you break the law, you've broken the law, and you must face the consequences. And she's saying, oh, geez, I didn't know that was a law. No defence. So, if tomorrow some tosser who is really super duper health conscious and decides that, the whole world must be exacting with their diet and we're going to ban all sales of chocolate. And, Joe Blow still got chocolate at home, but now it's illegal to own said chocolate. What are you going to do? And don't say that, it'll never happen. I mean, they've banned alcohol before. Why wouldn't they ban chocolates? I mean, the solutions of the Australian government and governments in general is they don't want you to do something, so they tax you out of existence. They tried that with the cigarettes. Now, I've never smoked. And, back in the day when I was young, I used to get teased and rubbished because I didn't smoke. I wasn't cool. So, I'd get the snarky comments. And I didn't really like the comments, but I was, savvy enough and confident enough in myself to realise that I was going to have enough problems in my life. I didn't need to be addicted to cigarettes as well. And my decision had nothing to do with my health. It was more to do with I didn't like the way that cigarettes smelt on people. Because everybody was smoking back then, they all smelled like stale ashtrays. And it's like, yeah, I don't like that. And I didn't get pocket money. So it was either turn to a life of crime and keep stealing my dad's cigarettes or just not smoke. So I decided to just not smoke. But now, smokers are the pariahs. Everyone gives them a hard time. And there's nothing worse than a reformed smoker. It's like, I want to hit them. And they never bitch at me about how I smoke because I don't. But God, they just go on and on and on at these poor bastards that are still smoking. And I'm of the opinion, you know what, something's going to kill us. You can legislate as much as you want about it. Something is going to kill us. And if you want to encourage people to stop smoking, if your argument is, oh, well, it costs so much for the hospital care, then why the fuck aren't you putting the money from the taxes from the cigarettes into the health fund and quarantine it so that it's only used to treat people with smoking problems? They've paid their taxes. It's their taxes that would be paying for their treatment. But no, that's not how it works. That's not how the government does it. And it's not the real reason for having cigarettes that are so overpriced. I think we need to stop having the do-gooder brigade try to save every human life, because you can't do it. You know why? We're born. We sort of try to live, and then we die. And there's no guarantees. I mean, perfectly healthy people have died over the last year and a bit that we've had this pandemic, and they haven't died from COVID. They've died from suicide because our beloved leaders have made our lives a living hell. They've terrified people. And we've lost sight of the bigger picture. People die from the flu. People die from colds. People die from all sorts of things. There are more people that are dying from malaria. More people get sick from malaria in Africa than get sick from COVID. And they're really sick, desperately ill. My grandfather had malaria. It was not pleasant. There's long-term effects of it. And, there's plenty of diseases we've got that, they kill us. I mean, babies are dying from whooping cough, and we do the vaccine. But you know what the vaccine does when you get the vaccine for whooping cough? It stops you giving it to others. That's not what this COVID vaccine does. The COVID vaccine does not stop you passing on this virus. I can't have it because I've had anaphylactic shock before. But since the only thing that it would do is to lessen my symptoms, the risk to me of taking it is far worse. It's more predictable than the risk of me getting COVID, if you know what I mean. And I know people get debilitating illness after surviving COVID. You hear some real horror stories of just how badly affected people are. But I've been sick my whole life. And after I went into anaphylactic shock, it was 6 months where I literally couldn't do anything. It was a struggle for me to drive the kids to school. And the school wasn't far from home. but I couldn't walk the kids to school. I literally had to get into the car to drive them, and then I had to pick them up and bring them home. My recovery from that was years, and it made something that I had, because I had a pre-existing condition, having anaphylactic shock made it so much worse. So I'm not talking as a perfectly healthy person saying, oh, I'll never get COVID, because chances are I will, and chances are it'll kill me. Chances are it'll kill me. And I can't have the vaccine. But if the vaccine stopped people from spreading it, I think I could get on board with it. But, so the reason I bring it up is because we're still talking about what governments do. And I'm a bit concerned about the government using language that encourages businesses to, suddenly say, oh, you can't come in here if you've been vaccinated, or if you haven't been vaccinated, or, we reserve the right to kick you out if you're not wearing a mask, even though there's no mask mandate here. But, like the travel passports, where's our freedom to travel? I mean, countries can keep out whoever they like, but, insisting on a vaccine for something like COVID, where the vaccine, the cure's worse than the disease, but, the vaccine doesn't really stop you getting the virus. That's where I'm hung up, because it doesn't stop you passing it on. I have a problem with that as a law. And I noticed that there was, I saw the headline flash across my screen where there's a hairdresser that's now banned people if they've had the vaccine. They just don't want to know about them. And I think that sort of tickles my funny bone. And the reason why I'm banging on about it is more because governments have been terrifying us. They've been, it's been really, really over the top, as in we keep frightening you. And there was this report put out that the language they're using is classic NLP. So if you don't know what NLP is, that's neuro-linguistic programming, where if you say things in a certain way, people will accept what you're saying more quickly. And if you keep reinforcing things, they'll accept it. And I just think it's really sad that our government is playing this game where, we do a lockdown, we wear masks, we don't wear masks, we shut all the little shops, but the big shops can stay open. Had it been consistent, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. I think that's my biggest problem. There was no consistency. And there's no consistency in any of the laws our governments bring in. It's just, you have laws for this and then they have another law and you sort of think, but if I'm following this law, then I'm breaking this one. I must do the research on that because I have seen it. I must find those two acts again. Usually they take away a section of an act, but I think in this case maybe something was missed. There's another section of... I don't want to talk about acts tonight. I really don't. It's Friday night. It's just my rant night. But I like Pauline Hanson's look on her face with that. She looks like the cat that got the cream on this one. It's usually they put very unflattering photos of her in any news reports. But But, I mean, I can't say that I'm a Pauline Hanson supporter. But I do like that photo of it. And, I'm happy that she's said, nah, get stuffed, not doing that. I think it's about time someone stood up for us Aussies and, told all of the powerful lobbies to just go and get stuffed. We're not doing it. So, let me just scroll that back so that, it's just a bigger picture. So, with all of, when I used to talk about this with my lecturers, they all said, well, what you should do, because being a lawyer doesn't solve the problem. Lawyer, it's one-on-one, and you're solving individual problems. And what you really want to do is you want to change the laws, which means realistically, you should enter Parliament and start pushing for the laws to change. And I find that approach really unsatisfactory as well, because it doesn't seem to be happening very quick. So I guess I'm just going to see if I can tell people what the laws are and, how to get a better outcome despite the crappy laws we've got protecting us. One of the things that people get confused on is, how does the law actually affect you? They think that, you'll have the people that are so terrified of the law that they never ever do anything at all, just in case it's against the law. And then you have the other ones who'll break every law there is because they don't care. Chance of being caught are, pretty rubbish. Living the high life, doing what they like. And then there's everyone in between who, takes the occasional risk, tries to live a good life. But I think we've got a lot of laws that turn law-abiding citizens into criminals. Stroke of a pen. And that is so wrong. I think we need to stop legislating against everything. I think we need to have some common sense brought back. We can't make everything illegal. I mean, yeah, we need to have good rules and we need to have good punishments. But can we stop sending people to jail for bullshit? I mean, if you don't pay your traffic fines, and some people owe like $27,000 in traffic fines. They've lost their licence and they keep driving without a licence. So eventually some of these people get thrown into jail. But it still doesn't do any good. So what do we do? How do we stop people who are such piss poor drivers that they think that they can do whatever they like without consequence? Because you can't give them consequence if they're not going to pay the fines. And paying off the fines by being in jail doesn't work. If you send them to work to pay it off, say, oh, well, you're going to work for us for a year and we're not going to pay you. You're going to work for us full time until you've paid your debt to us. That sounds really great, but it's slavery. So that doesn't work. So how do we get through to these knuckleheads that keep thinking, I can drive 120 in a 40-hour zone because, who cares? It's like there comes an age where some people actually grow up and don't do it anymore. And then you hear about people, they make it to 65 and they're still idiots. Do you know why I don't speed? It's not because I'm a goody-goody. I just can't be asked giving the government more money. They already get enough. My husband pays enough taxes. I'm not giving him any more. So I don't speed. And then, you'll be on the freeway and people are going roaring past you because, oh, you're only doing 110, which happens to be the speed limit at the lower end of the Kwinana Freeway. And they're roaring past. And then, you finally toddle up there and, they're still stuck on the side of the road because, had an accident, held up all the traffic for about half an hour to an hour while people pushed their cars off the road and they waited for the police to show up. And then, traffic's moving really slow, but we're moving past them. Happens all the time. It's, we're not a cohesive society anymore. There's nothing for the greater good anymore. I mean, I try not to do stupid things in my car because my car's a lethal weapon. And, if I'm driving through the suburbs, I was always doing 40. It's a 50 zone here. I always do 40, and we're talking if you're from somewhere else and you get this, I'm not talking 40 miles per hour because that's a tad fast. It's 40 kilometres per hour. I do that in built-up areas because when I was first starting to drive, I was driving along and there were kids literally playing chicken with cars. They would run out to see how quickly the cars could stop. So if I'm driving around the suburbs, I am not going to be speeding because I know that you can't always see the kids and you can't see the dogs and you can't see the cats. And, it's just living with running over a living thing and killing it does not do it for me. So, yeah, I'll go a bit slower, but I still get to where I'm going. And it's, I try to do about 40, which, oh my God, you can walk faster than that, I'm sure. You can't. I can't. But, it seems so slow. But it's a small price for me to pay, Do I want it as a law? Do I want to write a petition to the government and say, yeah, everywhere in suburbia, make it 40? No. There'll be plenty of times when you can drive, suburbia is now 50, unless you're on a designated road that's 60 kilometres an hour. That's good enough. We built the roads for cars. We didn't build the roads for kids to run out on and play chicken with cars. It sounds pretty ridiculous to most, but let's face it. Kids shouldn't be playing on the road, and we've got to have our wits about us. You shouldn't be doing 80 in suburbia. Just, common sense, which seems to be lost on a lot of people. Even around here, we're really quiet neighbourhood, and it's all, cul-de-sacs and things, and people still speed. I mean, how the hell do you manage to speed in such a short time? It's like, and it's, what we end up with is laws for the lowest common denominator, and I think it takes away our innate right as adults. We're adults. We're adults driving. We do have to come up with something to stop the dickheads, but I think I don't understand the male brain that's wired for speed, or, there's a lot of young women who drive around like hoons as well, and I don't understand it. If you want to speed, go to the speedway, because you can actually, book yourself in for a session while they're not doing official races, and you can race around that thing to your heart's content. Why not do that? Why is it a challenge to speed around suburbia and, just isn't the thrill of not getting caught. I mean, the chances of getting caught in suburbia are pretty slim, but the chances of running over a kid or, running into a car that is backing out of the driveway and you are going too fast that, by the time that they're looking, they're out on the road in front of you. It's a pretty big risk, and it happens all the time. The amount of times people go into houses, as in they drive the car into the house, you'd think that they wouldn't do it. You'd think that they would find a way of getting their speed freak on in a more safe, controlled environment. Maybe the solution is it'd save a lot of money if every neighbourhood had a bit of a track that all the hoons can go and, go up and down and round. And, if you have an accident, there's, it's up to you. Your insurance will have to cover it. But, the government is very reactive with laws. I've read, one of my hobbies is to read through, really weird laws. And there are so many of them where you read it and you say, now I wonder who the fuck did that made somebody else decide that we need a law for that. I think one of them was that you can't have sexual relations with a raccoon or something. It's like, okay, that really boggles the mind. One of the laws that kind of annoys me, because I know that animals are really smart, and a lot of them are smarter than their owners. And horses are really clever. So if you train your horse, you can train your horse to take you to and from the pub. And the horse will do it without missing a beat and will walk calmly enough to not throw you off, And the horse gets to know the way and gets to know how it's safe, not a problem. And one of the things that really threw me to find out was that there is a law that you can get done for drunk driving if you're sitting on a horse and your horse is taking you home after going to the pub. And the reason I think that that's funny is because the country town I lived in, there were a few people who would go to the pub with their horses because their horses knew the way home. And then they thought they wouldn't get done for drink driving. And yeah, it's a thing. But we've got so many weird and wonderful laws, and no one's taking them off the books. I remember, would be about 20 years ago, this guy actually got into Parliament, and he said, all I really want to do is straighten out some of the laws, get rid of some of them. We keep piling on sections, but we don't seem to take many away. So adding the new sections, they'll usually delete one or two which are encompassed in the new one, but they don't take old ones that no longer seem relevant away. They're supposed to, and there was a push at one stage, and every now and then they will do it. But we've got this really convoluted legal system, and other countries do too, where, the minute somebody figures out that there's a problem, we'll have a law for it. We'll make this illegal. And, they did it, there's a famous case. I can't think of it now. You taught it in law school. Oh, my lecturers would be so upset to know that I've lost the law. But I think it was the Victorian government came up with a law, an act, a whole act, and it was designed to keep one bloke in jail. And from the wording of it, it seemed quite obvious that it was directed at one prisoner. And they were taken to the tribunal, and I think it was the tribunal, and, you know, there ended up being a trial, and the court decided that, yeah, this isn't the real law. This is not a real act. You are trying to interfere with one person's rights. Because, you know, once you've served your time, that should be it. That's your time. You've done your time. It should be a clean slate. And I mean, we all know it's not a clean slate. But, which is, I have a real problem with that, because I'm pretty sure that the reason why a lot of ex-prisoners get back into reoffending is because they're not given a fair go. They end up having to be worse than they were ever likely to be off their own bat. And, you know, once you start doing that to people, it's a slippery slope. And you can't guarantee that, you know, a prisoner, you know, who's served his time is now free, that they're not going to reoffend. But they've done their time, so you shouldn't really extend their time. So, you know, governments do weird and wonderful things with the law. And I'm thinking that is probably a whole book in and of itself, just, you know, to cover the weird and wonderful laws of Australia. And, you know, did you know it's still on the books? So if you do something and, you know, the police could actually charge you with it and you could be found guilty. I had a problem with the response to the lockdowns. When they said 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I sort of thought, I suppose we can put up with it for a little bit. It's not, you know, it makes sense. I often said, you know, we really need to lock down countries to stop the flu from going through, because I used to be so sick all the time, because with the kids going to school and the husband he was fly out to different mine camps at that stage, so he wasn't working at the same mine every time. Every time he'd come back, he'd bring back some bloody exotic flu from, you know, doing the rounds in some European country or something. And then the kids bring back different flus. So I was sick all the time because I just had no immune system. So I mean, even 3 weeks before the lockdown, I said, we really need to shut all the borders so that we don't get the flu. You know, it'll stop all the winter flus. So if they stop it leaving Europe now that it's winter, it'll be great. We won't have it so bad here because, you know, it'll be out of everyone's system. And then, of course, the lockdown came and I thought, that wasn't a very good idea. Bloody hell, I should not have asked for that. But, so we did the lockdown. And then, in its wisdom, the governments around Australia, all of the state governments, brought out legislation for it. And suddenly there were fines attached to, you know, leaving quarantine. And, you know, it wasn't a fine that I would consider affordable for the average Joe Blow. Just, I happened to be in court one day and there was a woman up on charges for breaking quarantine. So she'd had the test, and that was when you had 2 weeks before you got the test results. And on the last day, 5 hours or 3 hours before she would have gotten her test result, which was negative, she left home to get her tyres changed. And, you know, she ended up facing a $3,000 fine. Now, she wasn't fined there and then because she didn't have a lawyer, and it's a significant fine. So the magistrate sort of said, get a lawyer and we'll hear it later. So, But a $3,000 fine for leaving your home when there were no cases in Western Australia at all. We just decided, we're not going to risk it. The only cases we had were the ones that came in from the ships that were in quarantine. We had no community transmission. I think we had 5 or 6 cases that had come in from elsewhere. And it's like, that's a lot of money for a family to lose over nothing. Was she silly? Yeah. But, I think the fine was over the top. I do. Bloody oath I do. How many people are going broke over this? And I mean, I remember watching some of the news where joggers jogging on the beach, and the beach was empty, and this one guy had run there every day for 30 years or something. And the police officers tackled him, like 3 of them tackled him down. And then they said that he was a risk to them. Well, if they'd bloody well stayed away from him, they wouldn't have been at risk at all, and he didn't have it. So how can he be a risk to them of them getting the Rona when, he didn't have it? So the laws were pretty shit. I thought that the government response was really poor. Australia-wide, I thought, this isn't good. This is just not good. Why are you doing this? So I think over time, because I can build this channel to a fair degree, I can talk about some of the laws that are so stupid that make no sense. Some things just make no sense at all. So I'll see how I go. Anyway, I've nearly dribbled shit for an hour. It's like, wow. Time sure does fly when you're having fun, when you're talking to yourself. Anyway, it's Friday night. I'm doing nothing. It's a typical Friday night for me. So I'm going to love you and leave you. I'll hopefully get this bloomin' website finished. And people are finding it. It's so embarrassing. Yeah, I could private it and, not have anyone see it, but what the hey. The way technology has been with me, I'd probably lose it forever, and that would annoy me even more. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. Have a great weekend, and whenever you find this, I hope that, life finds you well, that if you've got a legal issue that you need help with, that you find some help. Maybe one of my videos will be really good for you, and you'll be able to move on and get your problems sorted. Nothing worse than finding nothing to help you. Been there, done that. Bought the t-shirt. Not doing it again. Anyway, I'm going to go. If you liked it, just click like, share, subscribe. Whatever we're doing, do it. If I was funny at all, I'd tell you a funny joke, but I'm not funny at all, sorry. Just, I've got a great sense of humour, can't tell a joke, for quids. Anyway, I'm going to catch you